and welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast. And we're going to review a new week of URC action. We're going to preview the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup that is coming up, and look at all the rugby news that's happening right now. My name is Thala. I wasn't sure if I was writing this podcast or not today, but I guess I just picked up the ball and ran. I'm joined by Shaun and Kooks today. Shaun, how are you doing, first of all?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good call. Yeah, I just knew it wasn't me running the pod today, thankfully. So thank
Uh,
goodness you started, as we could have had like just quietness. But I'm good. How are you?
good, good. Kooks, you doing well, man?
Hey, Tyler. Hey, guys. Yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks. I was thinking about it when the intro was playing. I was like, who's actually writing the podcast today? But I was like, let's see who tackles first. I just
Think-
figured everyone would just sort of resort back to their old forms and their old positions, and Tyler just came in running.
At least
No, guys, I'm
everyone now
fine.
knows.
I'll.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they knew already that we don't have a running order and we kind of just wing it.
What? Sean, you mustn't tell the people that. We're a
Well,
very efficient and organized podcast.
they know that for a fact when I'm on. That's one thing I can tell you, but not with you on. You are the consummate professional.
Okay. Guys, we're going to start with looking through the URC results, and then we're going to look at the Champions Cup, the Challenge Cup, the pools, the games happening this weekend, maybe even make a few predictions on who's coming out of these pools. 16 teams out of 24, so we should be able to get at least a few of them right. And then, yeah, let's talk about some of the rugby news. There's a lot of big news that has happened. That we can talk about a little bit later. But let's start with the Sharks versus Stormers game. Sharks having their first victory over the Stormers, 21 points to 15. Cooks, I think the main thing, I mean, it was a crazy match. It almost encapsulated both team seasons in some ways because both of them had great moments, both of them had struggles. The Sharks seemed like they had that match won, and then the last 10 to 5 minutes, they just seemed to almost give it away to the Stormers.
Yeah, I mean the similar thing happened against the Glasgow Warriors, where the Sharks seemed to be in cruise mode, and then next thing you know, the Sharks seemed in trouble. The funny thing on the game on Saturday was I was watching about 65 minutes of the game, and I had some people over for a bra, and I was like, oh, the Sharks should close this out, experience box. The guys will come through and sort of just close it out. So then I went outside, and then I just heard mates screaming at me like, come, 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 the Sharks are about to lose. I was like, what? Like, what has happened since like from cruise mode to the utter panic? And I walked back into the house as the ball sort of fell into Hoshi Yankee's hands in a cross kick, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just about to watch the Sharks lose. But yeah, Tyler, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the Sharks, it's been a struggle at times to close out games, and yeah, I mean, I think it was a very, very, very rusty game. It felt like a game of like it's been a month since the URC. That's how it felt like for most of it. And I just thought the Sharks, I think obviously may have done enough. I think Storm was obviously in quite a bad patch, and the Sharks benefited from that. But I thought those very good things from the Sharks, and obviously the ending was very, very disheartening.
Yeah, Cooks, I had a pretty similar experience. When it was 21, what? I think it was 21-8. I was like, okay, this game's done. I think the Sharks won a penalty in like the 70th minute. And I was like, okay, we're done here. This game is pretty much over. Let me switch over to the island game and see how that finishes up. And then I just see on like one of the WhatsApp groups, the Fassi yellow card, the penalty try. I sort of just caught, the drama with the TMO with them looking at the Libok knock on. You know, Sean, yeah, but I mean, I guess we can start talking about the Libok performance in some ways. It it had its ups and downs, I think, to put it lightly, and it almost felt like it had to be him that would either be in the middle of knocking on the ball or in the middle of winning the game for the Stormers. That was for Sean.
Yeah, I'm talking with my mute on. Maybe I've had a month. I'm like the URC. I've been off for a month. So it was such a crazy finish. And it's almost like one of those moments like, where were you at that moment when you realized, oh shit, the Sharks might lose this? But I was just sitting on the couch watching the game. And when the Stormers scored with a little bit of time left, I was like inside. I was like, you know what? This is the perfect kind of closeout for like a Manny Lebok kind of a player. Like he's the kind of guy that could just really open shit up. And my word, he did. Yeah, it was crazy. He didn't have a good game. There were a couple of Stormers players. There were actually probably a lot of Stormers players that didn't have a good game, but they they were in it. The Sharks probably took their foot off the pedal and thought, you know what, we've got this, and then all of a sudden they didn't got this, and then yeah, they went back to find it. So I feel like I've got a few questions. One question we're really going to dive into later, and it's not directed at Canan Moodie. It's like, do the Sharks like not? Are they not fit enough to close out a game, or what? We can chat about that later. But my other one was, does the TMO like does he have a look at that and then let's play on? And then if something comes from it, say, listen, let's put the brakes on. Because I don't think that you can look at every ruck and find something, because everyone's like, oh, now he's going to like really look for shit. Like, how does it happen? Like, do you have an inkling that ruck 3 rucks ago was a bit of a problem? You have a look at it and you're like, listen, let me just see what happens. Like, if nothing comes from this, just leave it, you know? Like, I don't know how it works, but yeah, interesting. Money, like, if you'd scored that try and won the game for the Stormers, would that have like papered over the cracks, or like would people have still thought he had a shocker and he just managed to pull out the fire? I don't know.
I must say, the Manny Lebok experience now, I think it's. I mean, coming from someone who Finn Russell's been his very rugby player for the last, say, 3-4 years, or even more, longer than that. I kind of know this roller coaster that Manny is in right now, where it's always going to be every mistake gets heightened, but then every big play will also get heightened as well. So there's like almost no middle ground with Manny. He either plays very well, or he says, or he's shit. Like so, and I do kind of feel bad for him. And I'm not going to say that he played well on the weekend, but again, if he finds a way to give the Stormers a chance to win it. That cross kick was
Yeah,
incredible. The way you put it for Oshiankis, that was an incredible
it
kick,
was
and
perfect.
it's one of those things where like Mane can still do certain things with the ball that not many other guys can do, and obviously that's the value that he brings to the Stormers. And obviously the Stormers, I mean, they still love that big kamikaze rugby, and I think that's more a detriment to Mane than actually Mane's general performance as well. Is the way that Stormers play. I think they've leaned in a lot into their throwing the ball around offloads, and like we said, the Stormers lead the competition in offloads, but like are close to the bottom in meters made. So I just think with the Marnie thing, he's always going to split opinion. Like if you're a Marnie fan, like every fault that he has will just be heightened. If you're a Marnie fan, you'll accept certain
Mm.
the mistakes, but then you'll have plays. Then you'll have plays like the cross kick and the try that he scored, where you go, shit, man, this is why I still will always believe. Like I said, it's the same thing. Like I'll go through with like Finn Russell, and Thala will still tell me that Adam Hastings should be playing for Scotland, but once again, what does Thala know? But but again, like you get haters like Thala and Jared, and I got to accept and got to hold the fort for the good plays that Finn makes. So I think that's the new Marnie experience because of like I think with Sasha coming in and Andre, and so I think like so everyone is sort of looking for a knock on H10. So for me, that's unfortunately that's the new Marnie Lebok experience.
So I'm sorry, I'm back. So this is my thing, and I'm glad you spoke about like Andre and Sasha and everyone, but like I still think that he's got a place in the Springbok setup. I really do. But I don't think we'd be being honest if we think that he is not having a slight little dip in form. Like, is that just because the Stormers are having a dip? Because, like, if we're honest about it, everyone is only really talking about the 9 and the 10 at the Stormers not having a good game, and mostly the 10. Like, is Mani's probably not having a? I mean, he's probably having a little bit of a slump. But the thing is, he's way too good to like that blip. It's not a blip. That what we saw last year in 2023 was not a blip. It's like he's way too. That's the kind of place that he operates at. So, like, does he have time? Do we like? Can we ride it out and wait for him to get good, or will he just miss the bus completely because we've got so many options?
Yeah, well, on the Stormers front, I mean, Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu, I think got injured. Well, he got injured again. We're not sure yet if that's a long-term injury. I don't know if you've heard anything, Sean. It doesn't
No.
sound like they've confirmed anything yet. I mean, he started. Not that the Stormers. I mean, the Stormers are still behind by quite a bit when he went off the field, but he started like a house on fire. Like he created that little break. He had that little. I mean, he had a great chip inside for Herschel Yankees. That banana kick on the run was like ridiculous. The drop goal from about 45 meters in on sea level even was fantastic. So there's a lot of competition for Lebok when Sasha's fit and playing, but since he's not yet sorted out the fitness, that probably means Lebok is going to be playing quite a lot of minutes for the Stormers. And I think, Cooks, you mentioned it now. The question is maybe do the Stormers need to change up their attacking plan or how they attack? Because, like you said, Cooks, the Stormers are number one for offloads. Like, they are the offload kings. They will always try the risky offload. They are bottom four for pretty much every other attacking stat. Bottom four for points scored, bottom four for tries scored, bottom of the URC for meters gained, bottom four for defenders beaten, and then at least bottom five or bottom six for clean breaks. So something isn't happening for the Stormers. They're able to sort of pass out of contact, but they're not really able to either make meters or to beat defenders. At least on Saturday, they were beating defenders. They almost mashed the Sharks with, the defenders beats. I think defenses both had a bit of an off day. Probably why Joey Mongalo was swearing at the referee. But it's it seems like the Stormers' attack is just not. It's a bit too much. Let the ballers ball. And Cooks, I know you're a big Dobbo fan, but I'm starting to feel like okay, Dobbo needs to either change up the approach or he'll be changed.
Sorry again. I'm doing a show and you're speaking on mute. Clearly, I'm also on URC week one mode.
Contagious.
No, Thala, I agree with you. I think that's the big one. I think that's where the Stormers are sort of struggling. I think it's that trying to find the style of play. And I think they've leaned a lot more to that kamikaze rugby when you saw against was it Connacht they played? Was it Warriors that played in Stellenbosch? And we saw the worst of it. And they sort of conceded tries from their own 5 meter line. Yes, it also resulted to one amazing try. But I agree with you, Tyler. I think my Dobbo stock's not looking very good at the moment. But I'm going to keep a few shares in there. But I just think what helped them a lot in when they won the URCs and the finals is the defensive stats and the set piece was good. I think that's something that's been struggling at the moment. The set piece hasn't been where they've wanted to be, and obviously like defensively they've also not been at the level where they were when they were going to finals. But yeah, I think the Marnie thing and Sasha, it's an interesting one for me, Tyler, because I think in South Africa at the moment, obviously Sasha is the darling and rightfully so. And Sasha does seem like the best of both worlds between a Marnie and a Andre Pollard. But, it is still a long competition and there's still Champions Cup, and I still think there is a possibility, there's a realm that you can have both guys. I think everyone's so quick to say we need to have one. We need to sort of one is to play. I mean, the fact that you can one of the bench is still a great option. There are games where we need to rest a Sasha. There are games where we need to rest a Mani. Like, are we not gonna? For me, like, I think people are also very quick to throw Mani Lebok aside. Like, he hasn't arguably been since we've moved to URC the best 10 SA10 in the competition, and he's rightfully deserves a chance to. He's cooked for the Stormers, like he has. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, that could have been Sasha's first game at 10 for the Stormers, because he's played everywhere but at 10. So I think for me, the Stormers need to find a way to sort of go back to that recipe that they had, 2023, 2022, and I definitely think that going forward, there's two competitions, lots of rugby to play. That having Sasha and Marnie is a luxury that most teams have. And like Tala, for example, the Bulls are desperate to try to find a backup 10. It's when Horsens it was like a completely different side. So not many teams do have a backup 10. No shots got Sia and Jordan, but again, like it doesn't give you as much confidence as having two Bok 10s in Amani and a Sasha, Amani and a Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu.
Shaun, let's look at the Sharks' performance. Like we said, some great things, some not so good things. I think let's start with the great things. I think if we go from number 6 to number 15, I think they pretty much all had really good performances, if not great performances. From Kolisi having 3 turnovers and turning into Sia Brasseau, to Andre Esterhuizen and Makazole Pimpi just running riot when they get the ball in open field. Apelele Fassi was great in attack and defense. Sia Masuku, I think, had probably his best performance for the Sharks in the last few months. Grant Williams had a great impact. Like, the attack is coming together, and their ability to create turnovers in defense when the Storms were attacking them in their 22 is there as well. So, in terms of good things, yeah, what things stood out for you?
For me, I think Sia Kolisi, Makazole Pimpi, and Apelele Fassi were by far the standouts for me. Kolisi looked like, when like great test players go back to domestic competition, that's what he looked like. Like, it was like everything was slower, so he could just do as he pleased. He was great. But Pimpy had a jaw. Esterhuizen was great. I thought Esterhuizen was like his normal self. I didn't think he was like outstanding, but I could be wrong, and I'm probably going to get some hate for it. And Fassi was great. It was lovely to see. Masuku, so it's going to sound very strange. This is not being disrespectful, or he was really like invisible in a good way. Like, everyone else was shining, and he was obviously just there pulling the strings and doing everything. It was lovely. So yeah, if I had to really pick someone, I really was impressed with Kolisi's performance. I really thought that was the one for me, that game between him and Fassi was tight. But for me, I thought Kolisi was probably a little bit better. But the thing is he faded off a bit to the end. Fassi did get carded, but he was in the mix the whole way.
Yeah, I think when he came off, you could see like he really emptied the tank there for the Stormers and for the Sharks. Cooks, on the not so good side, a few concerns about the scrum. I mean,
Yo,
yes, you're scrumming as Nettling for sheer, and he's fantastic. I mean, Alistair Vermaak is a experienced campaigner, but you're expecting, Oxenchair and Trevor Nyakane and Vincent Cox to be able to handle that. Sharks conceded 14 penalties. The line out, I don't know whose line out is working in South Africa right now. Maybe we need to look at, like, the women's box team, the Bulls Daisies, some of these schools that you are watching, Cooks, this year, but it's not any of the men's professional sides. All of our lineups are faltering at the moment.
yeah, no, it's like a line-out crisis we have in South Africa at the moment. I mean, do you think maybe this is the sacrifice for Tony Brown's attack skills? Like, we'll lose our key fundamentals, our lineups. But yeah, from the scrum, obviously, it wasn't ideal. I mean, it was nice to see the Stormers scrum obviously come through. I know it hasn't been where they wanted to be all season, and they set piece, but to be able to put massive pressure on someone like Ox. But again, I think for me, I'm not too concerned. I'll be concerned if the same issues come up again this weekend. I mean, I think obviously, like, you got to give benefit of the doubt. Obviously, guys get back together. I know obviously the Sharks is different because it is a Springbok combination, but yeah, I think I'm not too concerned yet. I mean, that there's still very, very world class operators in there. I mean, with Ox, Koch, and Bongi, but I must give credit to like a Neeling for sure. And probably he probably feels like there's a bog cap that he could have gotten this year, and unfortunately, he had to deal with the Thomas the Toy Renaissance and Volcolo return.
Yeah, I think for someone like Fashir, like, I'm of the opinion that any of our starting tight ends in URC would get 20 caps at least for any other international team but South Africa at the moment. Like, Fashir has been fantastic. We'll talk about the likes of Nklabakanye late in the pod as well. Yeah, but I think we talked about this in terms of the game. It was just such a scrappy game. So, Sean, you know, Stormers conceded 9 penalties, the Sharks conceded 14. Um, the Sharks had 25 missed tackles to the Stormers 27. So both defenses were under 80% tackle success. Sharks 79%, Stormers 68. Lineouts were both faltering, scrums were faltering, and there were penalties from either side. um, I don't like talking about refs, but in terms of a ref for a game like this, Marius van der Westhuizen, in terms of him being a bit more of the technical stop-start type of ref, didn't help matters as well. It just felt like the game didn't really get out of second gear, and Sean, you kind of mentioned it with the TMO intervention. I mean, the other Marius Jonker, was coming in at times. Yeah, I think we need to sort. I mean, I'm first of all, I'm very confused as to which rules are we following here. Is it the two
No,
phases rule? Is it
no, I think
I
it's.
don't even know.
Sorry, I know I popped a message on the group. you know that line out
Not
law.
straight
We're not doing that for the URC. That was just for the um,
autumn nations.
Autumn Nation series, I think. But it almost felt like, I don't know how I'm going to get this out. There's a bit of a tongue twister. It almost felt like the team who played the most worst. Every English teacher is shitting their pants right now. The most worst team lost because they were. It was like, if you could
Yeah,
play worse, but not as worse as the other guy, then you'd win. That's almost how it felt. Like, it was just, sure, that was a shocker. Sorry about that, but if yeah, it was weird. The scrums were weird. Like, you can write that off to, oh, it's URC hasn't been played for a while. Like, but except it was Ox and Vincent Koch and like Ali Vermaak and Netling Foucher, who haven't played, were cooking. So it was, yeah, I don't know. It was just up and down and weird, and it was shitty to watch for probably the last half an hour. Because no one really had dominance. It was like, I remember there was a period where we were just sitting. It was almost like it was in someone's half, but we just sat there and stayed there, like it was a knock on and a this and a that. But onto the laws, I don't know. I think we're going back to the normal kind of laws in inverted commas, and those new trial laws were only for the Autumn Nation series. And yeah, so if you throw skew, and then it's skew. Sorry, man.
that might be good news for the South African hookers right now. Until I don't know, maybe John Smith needs to have a bit of a meeting with the hookers. I don't know what needs to happen there. Um, at least on the Stormers side, in terms of positives, I mean, yes, we talked about Sasha and how good he looked. I think Suleiman Hotzenberg looked really good himself. Geland, still has his ups and downs, but I think he was fine. But Cooks, for me, Ben Jason Dixon was probably the Stormers man of the match. Like, he looked like that Ben Jason Dixon from last season, you know, pre sort of getting into the Springboks. Like, he just felt like he was in that groove of just being absolutely everywhere, making an impact, big tackles, big cleanouts, big carries. Like, he's the sort of player that can hopefully galvanize the rest of the pack, because it does seem like without Roos, without Daimani, without Fushia, Furi, without Murat, it does need some leadership, because it doesn't seem like other players are really standing up right now.
I mean, BJ Dixon has probably been the forgotten man in the last few months. Obviously, we know we had a
Mm.
tough time against the All Blacks, and then you sort of the likes of El Dukro and Cam Hanagum got his test cap, and then we went on tour, so we didn't see much of BJ Dixon, and I thought he was fantastic. And you played like someone who's got test caps. You played with someone like you
Yes.
can see that the way he operated, the way he carried that pack is someone that has like, okay, I've played my test caps and I've seen what it's like to be test rugby, and I'm coming back, and he looked like he's playing at a different level, which was fantastic to see, and that's what you want to see when guys go back to their domestic sides. But Tella, I think hit the nail on the head of the Stormers, for example, is just like they do miss a Roos Murat, and you do forget the injuries and as much as the issues they've had, but I thought Dixon was great, and I thought he needed that game. I thought because there's so many loose forwards at the moment in the African rugby, and especially in that blind side position where you're dealing with a Peter Steph Toy, and then Eric Lowe was fantastic, and Kwaka Smith plays everywhere, and you don't want to sort of fall away and sort of be and fall away and just be quiet, because you never know who's knocking around the corner. And like you don't like so. For me, I'm glad they did a good game, especially against a Shark side where there are a ton of Springboks, and there are guys also, the Chukas, the guys who are knocking for that jersey as well, who want to be where I think obviously where Dixon is, where Dixon maybe out the mix now, but he's still probably ahead of the Chitukas and the Pepsi Butulezes guys, who are sort of the next guys who are knocking on the door for that jersey. So I thought Dixon was fantastic, and I really hope that he gets back into that sort of form that made him a Springbok earlier, made him a shoehorn Springbok, where we're like, if there's something happens to Peter Steph, Dixon has to start at 7. I think obviously now we sort of play, he's doing well enough to play himself back in that mold. And yeah, like I said, it was just great to see him playing some good rugby again.
Yeah. Let's shift gears now and talk about the next African result, which is the Bulls getting a bonus point win at Connacht, 28 points to 14. Um, relatively not too many things that happened in this game. I think there were two incidents. One happened during the game and one afterwards. Sean kind of mentioned the one afterwards. I'll say that for later. I mean, Gumede got himself into a bit of trouble with with getting a red
Sure.
card, putting his hand into someone else's face. Sean, we haven't heard of a ban yet because we know that the Bulls lawyers work really well in overturning red cards in Europe.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard anything yet. I should be honest, I haven't even had a look for it. But yeah, it was interesting from being in a world where we were probably never going to see a straight red on a rugby field again because everyone's going to go to the bunker, everyone's too shit scared to make a decision. From being in that world to going to the sports ground and seeing 2 red cards in a game. So yeah, listen, I haven't heard anything about it, but it was a red card. Like I thought the referee handled it well in terms of he's like you've put your fingers in the vicinity of someone's eye. Like you can't physically see a finger in the eye, but it was 100% the right call, and it was just stupid. It was just a silly. It was a frustration play. It's basically when you are poking and poking and poking because you want someone to blow their lid so you can be a man up. That's basically what happened, and Gumede just had enough, and unfortunately, like I really think that he pushed his hand in his face just to kind of just really, stamp down that like authority, and it went bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think Schalk Burger finds nothing wrong with putting hands in people's faces, but that's maybe something of a before time. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the performance itself, I mean, yeah, gents should have maybe checked, who watched what. 'Cause, Sean, did you have a chance to watch this game sort of in detail? Because
Nah,
I only sort of checked sort of the in and out,
bits
the
and
highlights and stuff.
pieces. Yes.
Yeah, there was, yeah, I mean, it seemed like pretty much Connacht can't really get out of their own way sometimes. They sort of make their own mistakes. Bulls, execute well. I think there's a one try that David Creel took really well that I was like, okay, that's really impressive. So I think pretty run of the mill performance from the Bulls are obviously just a bit of a one of the top 3 sides at least in the RC. Cooks, then Jake White says something in the post-match press conference about Canan Moodie. Canan Moodie's having a great time in the UK. He went to Stamford Bridge. I didn't know he was a Chelsea fan. Cooks, maybe you guys are mates about that. And he opens up he opens up his Twitter on Sunday and sees that Jake White says that he maybe has gone to too many buffets in the last few weeks with the Springboks.
I don't. Oh, Jake Ward is never too far from controversy. And again, I
Never.
think I think probably Caden probably saw it the same way that we did. Like just one day, just randomly scrolling on Twitter, sharing his pictures from the time of the bridge. Like I said, Caden Moodie's now my new favorite Springbok winger, Chelsea fan at the bridge. I think he must not have a Colby now at 14. Just for that, that's how I judge our youth players who support Chelsea. And then yeah, that comment sort of comes in, but. I mean, there's quite a bit. I mean, I saw there was a comment also about on his pace. I think they say he got reeled in, but I saw he had to like run like 40 meters back, pick up the ball, and then sort of
Mm.
run 60 meters. So there's a lot going on in there. So, and then now obviously there's talking about the buffet. There's comment that's coming, but I don't know what's going on. I mean, like, it doesn't look like a man that's
I know
spent
what's going on.
more time over the buffet. But I also think, you know what, like, unfortunately, sometimes the Box maybe don't play as many games on tour. And also, he didn't play the last few games, the last 2 weeks on tour. So he
Yeah.
hasn't played rugby for 2 weeks. I mean, and then before that it's like he's played a lot of rugby in the last say 3 months. And obviously Russ does come in and Russ does play a bit of a factor. Like I said, it comes back. So I don't think it's a buffet table sort of thing. It means just been carrying bags for the last couple of weeks.
I know what happened. Jake White
Mm.
was chilling in the box while the game was on, and he saw Worm Rugby tweeted about Canon, and he's like, "Screw this! I'm gonna run with it." That's basically what happened.
What did
Because
Worm
Worm
Rugby
Rugby's
tweet? I think I missed that.
By the way,
yeah,
and
it probably
also
was after the game, but he did say, "Is do we need to talk about Canon Moody's speed?" That's what he said, and then and
Oh.
then Moody went and scored an absolute screamer. I think he ran like 60 meters
and
after the
also like
tweet.
I don't guys, you spend enough time in a hotel room and away from home. Hey man, like if the guy's at the buffet table, let him be. He hasn't been home for months. Like some of the players at least got to go home in this month gap, and where Moody's has
And
basically
you're
been
not
on
named
tour
in
for.
the 23 again.
Yeah, hey man, cut the guy some slack. Maybe he wanted to have an extra piece of bacon. You know, like guys, I know, like with work, sometimes if I'm going away for a week's trip, like sometimes you can't help, you feel sluggish. You go for a run, it's not the same. Like you're not having the healthiest things. I'm not saying the Bulls don't eat healthy stuff, but Jake, let the guys be. They've been on tour for like I don't know how long. It just I don't think Canan Moodie the last time I can't remember when last he's been in South Africa. So I think Jake must chill.
Maybe, maybe the Bulls are on the hot dog diet that the Lions were on last year.
Yeah,
Hey, we have actual owners that take care of our team, not yeah, let me not say more. But I don't think we are on the hot dog diets or hot dog rations like the Lions are.
no,
No idea.
I would really hope not, Tyler. We can't go back to a time of hot dog diets and what you call it, lock sitting at economy seats when they're flying to Wales and Ireland.
That was probably the one positive for the Springbok Bulls that they didn't. I'm sure that you'd fly back, with first class with the Springboks, and then you'd get on that Fly Safe international trip, to back to London. So I'm sure that was the one positive of them not going home is that they saved themselves a uncomfy trip, in the finest planes from Qatar Airways.
Didn't Dixon fly home and then leave with the Stormers like almost the next day?
Yeah.
He did a
Oh
bit of traveling.
goodness.
Shame that I never thought of that. Imagine flying first class and then tomorrow you go step on a plane and you're in cattle class.
Oh, that must suck. Yeah. Look, Bulls, yeah. I mean, Ambrose Papier was man of the match. Like,
So
we know
good.
what we can expect from him.
Can we
Um,
talk about that?
yeah,
Can we
we
talk
can
about
talk
him?
about it. Go for
Can
it.
we talk about Ambrose Papier? And it's almost the last 3 seasons. Surely we need to be starting to have that Springbok recall conversation. Surely.
I mean,
Over which nine?
ahead
Over
of
which nine?
which,
That's the problem. There's
that's my
90 of them.
question.
I think it was
I
very
think Ambrose.
clear when 38 nines went to the World Cup and he wasn't in the mix. I think that's kind of like, listen, this is where we see you. I get that. But we've rotated a bit. Surely he's in the mix. Surely.
No, like he's been fantastic. I think like guys like Ambrose Papier and Link Voshia need to like start their own like side, like their own like maybe like like the just some sort of like superstar
They
team
need
of
to
like the
find a
guys who
granddad who was born in Edinburgh. That's what they need to find.
Wales. Yeah, they need to be in the Wales team.
yeah, and I'm sure like the way Wales is going now, I think you need to spend 10 minutes in Cardiff for you to become a World International. So
Sure, we're lucky we kept Cameron then.
Just about.
just
We'll
yeah,
see. I
just
mean, as Will Owen likes to joke about, he's still their secret agent trying to get the secret so that he can play for Wales in the World Cup. So let's see how that goes. Um,
but I
I
must say,
think we can
sorry,
move
Tyler.
there. Go on, Cooks.
Like again, like I do feel bad for Ambrose, but again, it just also just shows, man. Like you guys remember a couple of years ago when you felt like we had no nines,
We
just
had no
felt like
nines. No, we can confirm
yeah,
that.
we just like we had no scrum offs, like, and then out of the blue, I mean, you just it's an abundance of nines. I mean, you look at like Osho Yankees and Ambrose Papier. Those are two Springboks who aren't in the mix at for the box right now. And you still got the likes of Paul DeVet, Sanilo Hamba, guys who have been really good and are knocking on the door. And it is hard for someone like Ambrose because I think obviously with Ambrose, it's Springboks. It's obviously they're always trying to find sort of they have a certain type of player. A Grant Williams can play a role like that Reinach does. He learns from him, and now he's obviously gone up to another level. Jaden Hendricks obviously is all class. And it's tough for someone like Ambrose because he may have gotten a chance in that time, and you could have gone on a run. But now it's the other nines, for example, Hendricks, especially Grant Williams, have gotten so much better by being in that setup where they've sort of opened up a gap, and it is harsh for Ambrose because I've really felt in the URC probably the last 2 or 3 years he's been the best nine. I mean, his game has gone leaps and bounds, but again, you get
Remember last
sometimes
year? Sure.
but sometimes you get players. I know Rassi picked him obviously in his first year, and he struggled. And sometimes coaches they don't go back to those guys. They'll always have those that tag against them when they may get a 1 year international rugby, and then it looks like it, and they don't crack it, and then they never get another gig again. Unlike Tyler's favorite player, Oscar Satutu. Maybe they are. That's a great like plays for Edinburgh. He's like him and Hoskins are like almost in the same WhatsApp group, right, Thala? Your guy.
Hey man, my Hoskins stocks have never looked so bad. Yeah, look, I think with Papier, I mean, it shows the biggest lesson with like elite sport is it's so much also just about timing and luck. Like
Yeah.
he could have probably had like a 2030 cap career when Herschel Yankees got that, that start, pre 2019 World Cup. That could have easily been him. And, he just happened to be sort of falling out of the rotation then. And I mean, someone like Evan Van Sale, who's been playing really well for Saracens, also for about 2 or 3
So glad
years.
you. I was just going to talk
He,
about him because he's been doing so well.
yeah,
He captained them this weekend, I think.
yeah. I mean, he easy also would have been, second choice to Faf a few years ago as well. Like, we literally had Faf and Reinach, and we've had our ups and downs with them as Springbok supporters, and there was pretty much no one else. And then all of a sudden, all of these like 20, early 20s, early to mid 20s nines just all come out at the same time. So it is also just about timing there. Just before you mention even Van Zyl, Sean, I just want to quickly mention that Johan Goosen has come back for the Bulls, and that has, I think, solved a few of the problems that we had prior to the international break. Because with Butter Chamberlain at 10 and and Van der Vault, sort of rotating the 10 jersey between them, it didn't seem like it was fully right, and didn't seem like the Bulls were playing at their best. We saw in that Scarlets loss, for example. So Goosen's back, things are looking a little bit better now. So I'm a bit more relaxed as a Bulls fan with Johan Goosen back riding the show.
Yeah, it's just to back on those nines. It's such a weird thing. Like, is it a trust thing? Was something said, or is he just not gonna force his way in? Because it's quite weird to look at someone like Ambrose Papier over the last few seasons, especially last season, and you kind of going like, you kind of think like, what the hell must I do? But yeah, I didn't really. I watched the game in patches. It's good to see Goose back. He does have some brain farts every now and then, but like Cooks, you were talking about earlier, like sides not having really good backup at 10. The Bulls are struggling. And for someone like Jake White, who honestly was basically buying like Springbok stocks for 3 layers worth for his side, like to be short of a 10 is very unlike him. So obviously stuff hasn't gone according to plan.
I think it's so weird, like our mindset here in terms of, as fans, for example, when you look at like our unions, like sometimes like we're so quick to sort of find like okay, who should be playing, who should be on the bench. Like you look at, for example, like you can use like a Munster, for example, where they're like we're gonna have Pendergrass, we're gonna have Rosberg, and we're gonna have Kieran Frawley. Those are our tens, and we're gonna rotate them all because we know we're in two different competitions a long season. And I think with Jake, obviously, he's done very well in building a, a squad. I mean, he's been adamant about trying to build two squads that can compete. And I think the 10 is something that is bothering because Chris Smith has been there, and then he's leaving, and then you've got Christmas left now. Jacob van der Walt is not sort of kicked on the way he'd have liked, and then Buddha Chamberlain as well. He's at glimpses. So I think with Jake, that's probably the big worry, not having a go to backup 10. I think the Sharks, I think with like when they signed Jaden Jordan Hendricks, and the first question is like, oh, but where's he going to play? But you're like, no, but you need the cover. It's a long competition. It's no longer you can't compete at URC and Champions Cup level with almost a squad of 32. You need a bigger squad. You need guys that can come in when the box score away, or when even if, for example, like if a Sasha, for example, has a bad 3 games, and maybe you can need money to start and settle the ship for 3 games. That's where I think the way we start thinking about our squads now is we need to have the same thing with the Springboks, our domestic sides as well. They need to have this cover, and to have two Bog tens, that's ideal. I think like Tyler said, Houston comes back and makes a massive difference, but we know Houston tends to be injury prone. Now is when is a Putter and a Jakob van der Valk going to step up and claim that almost backup fly jersey, and also be willing to shoulder responsibility for a month if needs be, if Houston goes away.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that. Um, it's also interesting, once again, the Bulls leading 28-0 through 3 quarters of the match. Obviously, the red card happens, as it's pretty much happened in almost all of the games that they've had on tour. then the last 20 minutes is the turn of the opposition to score. Like the Bulls, first 40 to 60 minutes probably are like the best team in the world, and then the last, like the second half or the last 20 minutes are near the worst teams because they always are conceding a lot of points, and they always put themselves also in bad positions, with the ill discipline as well. So those are things to at least fix for next time for the Bulls. Onto the Lions. They face Munster. Munster just fired Graham Roundtree before the international break, and they won 17, and Munster won 17 points to 10. I mean, the Lions were competitive. I think, also not a game that I saw a lot of. I saw probably just the first half. It did, Sean, yeah, I don't know how much you saw, but it did seem to me like, especially in that first half, that Munster was still trying to find themselves and still trying to just see, where they are. And the Lions, there was an opportunity there. They maybe could have been ahead at half time, and capitalize further on that Henco van Wyk, just solo try. Okay, let's first talk about that. Henco van Wyk and that ridiculous try. Every time I watch it, I'm like, he's going to get stopped. I don't know how he doesn't get stopped there.
He he doesn't he doesn't look that fast either. That's also why you think he's going to get stopped, because he's like deceptively quick. But yeah, like social media went mad. Everyone's like, "Oh, next Springbok 13," because I was like, he must have done something. It's Yeah, he's a good player. His injuries have hurt him in terms of like just the timing of them, but that's the kind of try that really puts you back on the map. But I mean, there's a little bit of a pecking order at the Springboks at the moment. You'd think that Canan Moodie's probably in front of him because they still want to try him out. But yeah, what a try! I thought the Lions could have. I also watched bits of it. I thought the Lions could really agree with you. Could have been in front or done a little bit better in the first half. But Munster, to be fair, today there's been like this last week or the last few days, there's been some
Yeah.
really good news coming out for Munster. Like they seem to be coming together. There's been some positive headlines. I think Alex Kendellen has re-signed with them. They've got from the Saints, Boyd. Boyd's going to come in and consult for
Yes.
them on a coaching thing. So things are looking good for them. But also another iffy game. I'd like the Lions to win this kind of game. Like if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And I know Ringo would too, and a lot of us South Africans. This is the kind of game that you as a Lion side should be winning. They've had a really good season. They're in good form. They've been really doing some things. This is that game, but it was just a little bit too much, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're right, Sean, especially for a team that wants to be in that top eight conversation. This is kind of a game you want to steal because you've just facing a team that's probably going to be competing with you to get into the quarterfinals at the right time when they're a bit off form and don't have a coach and all that sort of stuff and have the injuries. This is a game where you can get 4 points and it's almost like an 8 pointer because you get 4 points, you deny them points as well. So that's the negative in that respect. But yeah, I mean, big shout out to Munster as well. I mean, added to the good news, they've got some players back from injury. They've bought a few props because they were, I don't know, they're about to ask, the provincial state of mind people to play in the front row for them. They've got Deon Bluer from the Sharks and he started at Loosehead this weekend.
He had a game.
Um,
He had a game.
yeah, he was pretty good. So it's, they need to just, I mean, we know Munster, I don't know what is wrong with their, their physios and doctors and everyone, because it just seems like Munster has a big injury crisis at this time of year all the time, and then they get themselves right in April, May. So they just have to go through this, and then they'll start their 10 matches in a row run in February, March. Another positive was Takia Abrams just had a really good game. Was top for the meters and defenders beaten and clean breaks and all that sort of stuff. Like, I mean, we know in South Africa how good Abrams is, and he's a really good sort of attacking point of difference for Munster.
100%. I love old good old Takir Abrams, and like, oh man, I've been waiting for him to sort of have this breakout game since he got 2 months. I know injuries has obviously been something that's been bugging him, but unfortunately the Lions have to see him in full flow. I mean, he's such like again, he's part of the cheat code about coloured outside backs with scrum caps on. That's the problem. Unfortunately, the Lions had to face the wrath of that. But I really hope that he does get himself fit and fit consistently and playing well for Munster. Because I really thought that when Munster signed him, he was going to be a massive cheat code for them, almost a great replacement for Simon Zebo, an X Factor player in the wing that just obviously you can just create anything out of nothing. But I must say, try out for the Lions. I also felt like they got new manager bounced. As football fans, know what happens to a struggling side who gets a new coach. They always come up with a performance. But oh man, I think the Lions they will be fun. But you guys hit the nail on the head. If you want to compete, especially being the top eight and the top half of the top eight where you can pull it, because I mean the gap between I was looking at the log recently, like the gap from like you'd say from where the Lions are at 19, and that's fifth to 15th basically. It's only 8 points. I mean, 15th
Yeah.
at Zebras at 11 points, and then Lions it's 8 points. I mean, but then again, it's a dogfight. I mean, you look at Munster, who are 3 points, 3 points behind the Lions now. Benetton is 5 points behind the Lions, so it's still a big fight. So for the Lions, you want to sort of keep yourself in that range where who would have thought Cardiff would be there. But if you look at the Bulls, Warriors, and Leinster, they're sort of giving themselves a buffer and letting all the other sides fight for it in the top eight place. So for the Lions, if you're going to be on tour, you have a struggling Munster side, you want to pick up those points and not get yourself in this top eight fight where you lose a game or two on a tour, and then you sort of find yourself out of that playoff mix. So I think the Lions for them, that's is why this loss will definitely hurt them, and hopefully doesn't catch up to them at the end.
Yeah. I mean, out of the playoffs at the moment, if the playoffs were starting tomorrow, would be Ulster, the Ulster that Cooks and I had to apologize to, Munster,
Take it back.
Benetton,
I take
and the
my apology back.
Stormers.
I take
We
it
take
back,
it
Fraser.
back now.
No, because they're out of the playoff mix. I take it back. If there's the other playoff mix, I'll apologize again if they go back to like in the top three or top four. Then if they go out, I'll take it back. But no, I'll take my apology back.
Yeah. But do you think, I mean, especially with Munster, Benton, and the Stormers, at least two of them should be, in the top eight at the end of the season. So you need to, stock up those points as much as you can while you can for on the Lions perspective. So we'll
But
see. But yeah, I
at
think
least the Lions, oh sorry, Tyler. At least Benetton won't be there. I'm so sick and tired of Benetton. I'm so down with those guys. Oh,
I've, I, I'm
why?
really, I've really tried. I've really tried, but I can't
Oh,
anymore.
I want to believe in them so badly. Like, and they do everything right. And then this weekend, like 50-33, they just put a disaster class again. Ah, Benetton. I'm like, do they not want to be good? Like, surely there comes a point where you gotta like get there and you're like, oh, the players are here. This is the time to kick on. Oh, Benetton is so frustrating because they should not be outside the playoff mix. I mean, they shouldn't. I mean, we've got to draw 4 losses, and you're like, geez, Benetton, like, I just want you to be in the mix so badly. Like, you got so many great players, but then you just choose to be this version of yourself. Like, I feel like Benetton doesn't believe that they can be a top four side. They don't believe they can. Like, that's my issue. I think we all believe in them, but they don't truly believe in themselves. I feel like they've stumbled onto these superpowers, and they don't want to be Spider Man. They still think they're Peter Parker. I'm so tired of Benetton. These guys. Why they just keep doing this? Like, and then they're gonna find a way to sneak in at eighth. They're gonna lose again. They're gonna pot again sometime in October, August. I really think they're gonna go. I think this is the year Benetton. No, I'm done. I'm officially off the Benetton bus. Off, off, off. I'm done. They're my new dragons now. Benetton's my new
Oh
dragons.
no, Cook's not the dragons. Oh goodness, we don't need that now.
Actually,
Look, I
Benetton
will.
now Zebra is actually my new talent team. I need Zebra to find a way to get past Benetton.
Big positives for Benetton. One, the Italian, like the national team players didn't play, so we can give them that half excuse. And two, Augustin Creevy played for them and he scored a try, and he's like 81, so that's really cool for him. I mean, he's still sort of running around and causing havoc there. But yeah, Benetton, I mean, I was about to start on going through the results for Saturday. Edinburgh and Benetton, yeah, 50 points to 33, just a ridiculous match. And just, yeah, again, yeah, maybe the URC just said no defense this weekend. We're not going to do much today. Um, Other results: Glasgow on Friday beat Scarlet 17 points to 15. Also, didn't really play their big, first choice players. one little sort of play to look out for, at least from what the Scottish rugby Twitter people are saying, is their lock who started for them, Jaro. I'm going to say this name wrong, so apologies, but Jaro Oguntibenju, and he's
He was
I think
everywhere, hey?
19 or yeah, he's 20 if I'm not mistaken. He's been playing for Scotland under 20. He's People say he's a big sort of like future prospect. And Sean, we know now, especially with these Northern Hemisphere, and I think it was started by obviously the Springboks, but like these Northern Hemisphere teams are all looking for a lock that is about, that's 2 meters, but also like 140 kilograms as well. And he's going to fit into that, Miafu, Tafe Fanua, McCarthy type of role.
He's big and he's strong. He's got an athletic build. Like he's not like a Bucky's Boyta kind of big, that like farm big, or the Dwayne Vermeulen. He's pretty solid. He was really good. They were talking about big time Oganti Beju, and I kept an eye on him in the game. He was in the mix, made a few errors, but I mean, if you're honest, like he's pretty inexperienced, and that's an understatement. So, got stuck in with a lot of things. It was really, really good to see. And I know you're probably going to get onto it, but I do want to shout out to Sapphire's Abroad, Henco Fenta. Henco Fenta was ridiculous. Also, an incredibly good game. Yeah.
Yeah. Henco Venter is like the perfect glue guy for this Glasgow team. Like, he'll be there in the 23 when the big boys are all playing. He'll be playing pretty much every week when the big boys are being rested as well. Like, he's just been having a really good time there at Glasgow. So, yeah, just a big shout out to him. Then the other results. So, Leinster beats Ulster 27 points to 20. Kooks, he's now finally, the big news from this is more about who was Leinster's water boy. Geordie Barrett is now officially a Leinster player. He's done his interview. I think the most interesting thing, Cooks, that I found out was that Tadhg Furlong picked him up from the airport when he arrived in Dublin.
Was Johnny Sexton busy? Like, I was like, and Brown O'Driscoll, were they just not available? There's a lot. This is the last time Leinster deserves like an All Black or someone like that to come on loan. Because surely you're getting Brown O'Driscoll, Sexton, all the goats. Conte Pomi. I know tell him to stay one more week. Just to give Barrett more walk through. I'd love old good old Tadhg Furlong. What I mean. You think it would be a 2016, just getting there, like making sure he feels great. Driscoll showing him around.
Tadhg Furlong's got the best ball skills out of all of those guys you've mentioned, so maybe it's fitting that he went.
No, 100%. I think Tadhg Furlong is probably going to be like, just make sure you give me the ball. Like I promise you, I'll find you when I'm at outside center. But what I do find interesting is, I almost forgot that he had moved to Leinster. I think it is going to be a great move for him. I think obviously the interesting thing is going to be where he plays, as opposed to because you look at someone like Robbie Henshaw. Robbie Henshaw has been playing some very, very good rugby. And, at 14, you've got Hugo Keenan, obviously. I still think he's the best 15 in the world. Oh, man, it is going to be interesting where they're playing, but I still think it's a hell of a pickup for Leinster. And like I said to you on Twitter, Thala, Geordie Barrett and Alex Snyman are better prepared to. They just better know they're going to the Dragons. They're bringing Zebra Palmer because Leinster's going to milk.
They come to South Africa.
They are going to milk them out of. Oh yeah, they better send them to South Africa because there's no ways they can have. They're not sending Ross Bernier and keeping Geordie Barrett and Archie away from us. No. Like,
didn't these All Blacks all want to play against South African teams now? Well, Geordie, you get your chance.
No, now they get their chance. But it's still hello pick up. But again, this should be the last time Leinster is allowed to loan out prime like All Blacks get all loan or like on short, because like you gotta get someone to pick them up properly. Now Bod, the Sexton, Typhoid. It needed to be like the whole streets of Leinster, like the whole airport. It needed to be shut down. Like I need an open top parade for Geordie Barrett to come, not just be a water boy. Like you got to do a proper unveiling with someone like Geordie Barrett.
So basically, what they did was, I don't know if you remember back in the day when the All Blacks released that skills video. So basically, they did that in training. They brought Sexton and O'Driscoll in, and Tadhg Furlong won it, and therefore he got to go fetch Geordie. So this is my thing. I'm so glad you mentioned Robbie Henshaw. I really think he is in ridiculous form at the moment. He's playing well at 12 and 13. I am going to go out and say it. I think Gary Ringrose has dropped off a little bit form-wise. I wouldn't be surprised if Barrett starts at 12 and Henshaw starts at 13 this weekend.
Yeah, long term, I would play Ringrose on the wing,
Off the
especially for
bench.
the Ninoba rush defense. But yeah,
Really?
yeah, because I mean, a 14 is basically a 13 in the rush defense, so you might as well just play Ringrose, and if
Also,
he's
Thala,
not,
like
he's good at
it's okay
rushing.
to bench. It's okay to bench Ringrose. Like,
He'll
like
bench because he can cover center and wing, as you mentioned. He'll bench.
yeah, you got someone Ringrose. Even Henshaw can obviously great bench option. I mean, like, I just hope they don't. And I'll tell her, don't you dare throw away Jimmy O'Brien. I saw what you did there on Twitter saying like, oh, the O'Brien. No, 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 no. You throw away my guy who got injured at the wrong
Oh,
time. Gee,
he better get ready to tour, Cape Town and go on safaris because he's not going to be playing for the first choice team, unfortunately.
well, the hard one is like someone like
Safari.
Jamie Osborne. The tough one is like Jamie Osborne, who's like
Yeah.
who found himself being like almost the first choice 12, and then Henshaw's back, and then he's like, okay, cool, I can just slot back to 15. And like, oh no, Keenan's back. So if I'm Jamie Osborne, I'm asking Keenan like, does no one want to go to sevens for one more year?
So
Just try
yeah.
again.
I
Go on, Sean.
I think you can bench either. I was actually my brain. I was somewhere else. So we talk about safari. Like South Africans, we don't talk about going to safari. I mean, I talk about going to the bush. But what is it? What do you guys refer to? Kooks, you must go to Kruger.
Yeah, but
Like,
myself and Tyler refer to going to the bush is a completely different experience that we had.
this is true. This is very true. This is very this. I'm talking about adults here.
I just say, I'm going to safari as well. Obviously, get triggered if I say go to the bush. I don't really
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
we say safari, Sean.
Really? Mm,
Yeah,
but I
that
can
that might be
understand
sort of a
why.
lost in translation type of situation, as Cooks
So
mentioned.
100%, 100%. But back to the rugby now. So I think realistically you could bench both Ringrose and Henshaw in some way, shape, or form. Not at the same time, obviously, because they both can play wing. Well, Henshaw obviously covers both 10, 12 and 13, and an absolute stretch can cover 15.
Yeah,
But I think right now, I would really like. I think the right call for the people would be to start Geordie, and therefore Geordie starting at 12, and then put Henshaw at 13.
yeah. Maybe just to throw it in very quickly because I don't know if we're gonna have time to do a long sort of like analysis on this game. Cooks Ireland beat Australia 22 points to 19. Australia was in the lead. Ireland sort of fought back to win. I mean, I think that 7 or 8 out of 10 we gave them last week seems justified. Like they're still winning, but there's still a few concerns. And geez, it feels like on Irish Rugby Twitter, there's like a big civil war about who should be the fly half now.
It's a massive civil war. I mean, I took off the bench. I took Crowley, so me still cementing himself as number one. Obviously, Pendergrass is
Yeah.
incredible talent. I think I don't know who said it. It could be you, Tyler, but I think Ireland have been crying out for a sort of reserve 10, to having two tens, having been the Sexton show for the longest time. So I just think that having Crowley and Pendergrass is not a bad thing in the world because then you have cover if anything happens where you don't have a situation again if you get yourself in a quarterfinal and you have like Sexton basically playing until you can't even walk anymore. You can't even walk anymore. So I think for them having the two tens is it's not the worst sort of problem to have in Crowley and Pendergrass. And I thought Pendergrass was a lot better. He didn't try to kill someone with his shoulder like he did the week before, but for me, the biggest takeaway this weekend is that the Wallabies clearly have a plan. You can see where they're going. You can see where they're going forward. I took more positives in this game against Ireland than I did against their win against England. You can see what Schmidt's doing, and it will take time. And I think obviously they got the big result against Wales, against England. They got the big win, and then obviously they just missed out against Ireland. But you can sort of see what he's trying to cook. You can see where the Wallabies are going. Obviously, it's not perfect and everything, and it's might not come right in Lions too. And I think the best outcome for them will probably be to get a game to make it 2-1. And then come World Cup time, I think obviously you can see if those core group stays together, you can see that how they can get better. You can see there is a sort of a plan. I do think it's almost similar to, like Dave Rennie's first year. I think probably slightly ahead of that, but now because of the big damage control that he had to do when he took over what Eddie Jones did, and then if you Joe Schmidt, you sort of do end the year of smiling because I felt like the results weren't as important, but they just had to look good and had to look like they had a plan, and there's a few results that obviously went their way. But yeah, I think for me, that's my big more my biggest takeaway is how well the tour went for the Wallabies, even though they went 50-50.
Yeah, look, I think the big things to take out of this match on the Wallaby side is they have a defense now, a really good defense. Like they were able to deal with Ireland and the attack pattern, which is great, obviously, for the Lions tour because obviously Andy Farrell's going to be coaching the Lions as well. So you can deal with all the multi-phase stuff, and I mean Ikitau and Swali were made to tackle quite a bit, and they largely dealt with it pretty well. And the next thing that they need to do now that we've seen Carter Gordon and now Canan Moodie go to rugby league, Jordan Pataya's gone now to the NFL. Every player that played for for Schmidt this year must be signed to a long-term deal, and Schmidt himself sign them all until 2027 at the very least, because how good was Rob Valentini? Obviously, like we talked about last week, probably one of the best loose forwards in the world. And how good was Fraser McWright? He had an absolutely
Yo.
ridiculous game on Saturday, Sean.
Fraser McWright beat four defenders, made 21 tackles, and got four turnovers. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm so super happy. I think it's no secret. I have a little bit of a soft spot for the Wallabies. I quite like them. They're I always do want them to do well, but just not against us. But the way that this has come around with all the shit that happened last year, with how their year begun, new coach, and with we all know it's all about the Lions tour next year, and then it's about the World Cup after that. That is all it is. Because if Australian rugby don't perform in those two spaces, they will literally all their players will disappear. You can almost that's almost what it feels like. So for them to finish their tour like this is, and for them to do what they did is amazing. It is put the Lions like it's not going to be such an easy tour anymore. I don't think. Well, I think the Lions fans and faithful will be thinking that. But I want to ask: is this the end of the golden era for Ireland? Have have we seen the best of what they've got? Have we seen that in 21, 20? Everything's lighting up here. In 2021, 2022, and 23. Was that it? Like, they'll still be good and competitive, but are they? Have we seen it from Ireland?
I don't. oh, I don't think it's over in terms of. I still think there will be a 75% sort of win side. But what's key for me, though, Sharky, with Ireland is they've got to start rotating next year. That don't fall in the trap of sort of sticking and maybe pushing a Peter O'Mahony for another year, Cian Healy for another year. I think it's time to take a few lumps and a few bruises next year because I still think the guys coming through. Sharky is there's still quality coming through the ranks in the domestic side. So there's all this depth that is sort of built up over the year, and those guys now have got to start getting some game time. You can't have the likes of Nick Timoney going on every single tour and not playing. He's got to start getting some game time. Throw Sam Penn across there, throw in other youngsters, throw in other props to get in there. So my thing with Ireland is if they want to keep this golden generation going, I think right now they're in that middle ground where they do have aging players, so they can be able to rotate next season, but and still have like the Henshaws and guys like that who can sort of shoulder more of the weight. And then sort of obviously as you go on to 26 and 7, those guys, the youngsters, they get like I said, Pendergrass, he gets himself to 20, 25 caps. And Crowley's they're also growing in the job. And guys like Timmy, guys like is it Uzukwe, yeah. I can never get his name right. Um, those guys are getting game time. But I think they've got to start looking at that early Six Nations next year and not try and stretch this current group for another year. Because sometimes I always feel like with great sides, sometimes you fall in the trap of giving them another year because of the loyalty and how well they've served you, and then they kind of hit the cliff. And then once you hit the cliff, it becomes very hard to bounce back. And maybe that cliff could not be next year. It could be the start of 26 to 2020 or end of 2026, and then now you're scrambling to find cover because your the older players are sort of fallen off a cliff, and you haven't given other guys an opportunity. Where I think that's what the Springboks have done is by giving guys chances now, and hopefully next year they'll give a lot more chances too. So if anything does happen to the older guys that fall off a cliff, you got guys who've got 15, 20 caps already.
Yeah, I mean, Cooks has nailed it mostly. Like, I fully agree with him. I think in terms of asking the golden generation question, I think it's two different questions. Do I think it's obviously over for the likes of, Omani and Healy, to an extent, even Furlong and Aki? Probably. Like, I think they're probably going to, this is sort of as good as, there's quite a few players that are 13 over. But I'm in saying the same thing though. The likes. I mean, Healy and Omani, they should be given a nice care package by Ireland and wished on their way. Like, they really shouldn't be in the next like Six Nations squad beyond just you know giving nice speeches on the Friday night and stuff like that. My concern, I guess, is that middle ground of like players that have hit 30 or just hit 30. The Thunder Flares, the Henshaws, the Akis, you know, are they going to be able to make it to 2027? Possibly. I think most of them might, especially how they managed in Ireland. They have a pretty good chance. But they definitely should be a bit of a renewal and a bit of a rotation in the squad. And I think with Farrell, luckily, he has the wins, he has the silverware to back him up. Like, he's literally a Jordy Barrett thigh away from making a World Cup semi-final and probably a final because they would have beaten Argentina. Like, he's gotten all the wins in South Africa, in New Zealand. He's won the Six Nations, won a Grand Slam. So hopefully the mandate for Easterby is to try and rotate, like Cooks has said. And I think the second thing that concerns me more is less about the players. I think Ireland has a lot of great players. It's more just the game plan. Clearly, now teams are more than comfortable with handling their attacking shape. They need to try to do something different. The problem is Prendergast is almost like the son of Johnny Sexton and how he runs the game. Crowley runs the game a bit differently. He's a bit more of a direct end, but Prendergast runs it as much as Johnny Sexton does. And it does make sense that Prendergast being your starting 10 and then Crowley sort of, or Frawley coming off the bench. And maybe Prendergast will fall to like third choice. So the question is, for Andrew Goodman, what do you do in terms of getting your attack going? So Goodman is great with those launch plays, and I mean Ireland was really good with some of their launch plays. We've seen how they tore up South Africa with some of their launch plays from the 22-meter drop goals. Now it's just about, okay, phase by phase. Are we going to still be a multi-phase team and keep the ball and do quick rucks and all that sort of stuff? Or do we change it up? Maybe we become more of a kicking team. Maybe we become more of a direct team. Maybe we sort of attack around the fringes. They need to adapt to that next thing because it's now seeming like, and this happens to all teams that get coached by the same person over a number of years, and that's, I think, a good reason why Rassie Erasmus brought in Tony Brown and Jay Flannery to change things up. Is we've seen it with the Springboks, in the Peter de Villiers era. We've seen it with the All Blacks with the Steve Hansen era. You need to change things up, and that's either with the players or with the coaches, and probably usually both.
Yeah, talk about teams that are overcoached by one player. Wales. It's the thing is Ireland have to evolve. They have to, and they're probably going to be forced into it from a personnel point of view because they are going to have to starting to pick. They're going to have to start picking other players, and that will probably force their hand. Just because I don't think they have that many players to pick from. The thing is Cooks, I think you've nailed it. Like, they have to start changing things up. And I can promise you the fall off the cliff, the length to the ground increases exponentially the longer you go on with these older guys, because we've seen it so many times where we take a whole bunch of old boys, like that time of like taking guys and just running them into the ground, and then you kind of say, oh, it's World Cup to World Cup. So come, January, February after a World Cup, you literally have a whole bunch of new players and you start from square one. You can't do that anymore. So it's very interesting because it doesn't, to me, it looks like they're kind of going to carry on just flogging this horse, and I don't know if the horse is dead or not. And that's the concerning part. But looking now that Easterby comes in and there will be a change up, we'll have to. He's obviously, he's not the kind of guy. I don't think any major coach worth their weights is going to kind of go, okay, cool, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I think they're going to have to really do their own thing. But things have to change for Ireland. They have to, and fast. But have they pushed it too long by having all these guys in November already? You don't know.
I must say, before you talk Champions Cup, I still think it's an exciting place to be for Ireland because they're still winning games, and you still got 3 seasons out, or 2 full seasons before the World Cup, and also a season on the Lions tour with the Six Nations. You can almost have a free shot, like Thala said. Like Andy Farrell's brought himself enough cachet where we can have a rebuilding year, and so I still think it's an exciting place for Ireland to be at. Like you said, I think they do have players. I think obviously it's getting the it's just getting them to get game time, and also someone like Andrew Goodman, it's putting together a new attack, and the new attack Thala that you'd actually want to get. It's a perfect time to change attack shapes or tinker the attack shape because you've got 2 full seasons at it. So, and you wanted to come right sort of World Cup time, which they did out on the attack. Obviously, again, like you said, Jordy Barrett far away from getting into a World Cup semi-final, where again, like I know what is maintained for Ireland is the one that far away. So I do still think, as much as this is where the standards are for them, is where when they've gone on an end of year tour, where they've only lost one game when they shouldn't have actually lost the All Blacks, is they can still adapt. But I genuinely think it is they are still in a good place, and and the best time to sort of adapt is when you're winning. You don't want to wait until the curtains really fall off, the wheels really fall off, and then you want to sort of adapt. Now you're panicking. Wales. Wales is getting a beating on this pod, but I think with Ireland, the perfect time to do it should be now. And I think the Six Nations title we're both screaming for. I think that's a time where you can start tweaking things. Like I said, you have 2 full seasons, 25, 26, to sort of get it right. And if I'm Wales, and also I don't know if Ireland will play tests in July. If they do, also a great chance again, almost the emerging players going on
Playing
a little mini
Portugal and
tour.
Georgia, I believe.
100%. Now, guys maybe in the emerging tour, they get that chance again where you're running even more of that attack shape, and then when the experienced guys come back in November, the base gets bigger. So I think next year is a very, very important year for Ireland, and I think it's an exciting time for them.
Yeah. Just to quickly wrap up on URC results. So Cardiff beat Dragons 31 points to 23. We have the Zebra, Kooks' new favorite team, beating Ospreys 22-17. We talked about Edinburgh beating Benetton. The one thing I want to mention from the... Go on, Kooks?
As the Zebra Palmer, here we go. This is where the rebuild starts. This is where it starts.
So Zebra's playoff run is starting now. And then the one thing just to mention from the Premiership, this weekend, I think it was Paul Edison that mentioned this, but this weekend, the last five, so the England Premiership has had 5 different champions in the last 5 seasons. And all 5 of those previous champions lost their games this weekend. So Harlequins, Saracens, Northampton, Exeter, and Leicester all lost their games this weekend. Sean, it's just a crazy league right now.
Yeah, that is very true. Come on, Bath. But it's so interesting. I mean, so I didn't actually pick up that stat. That's so flipping incredible. But what I did pick up was Newcastle are starting to rock the boat a little bit. I think they beat Saracens.
They did, yeah.
Steve Diamond is like trying to plug the holes because the club's up for sale, but he's like, it's up for sale for different reasons to the reasons that this sold clubs went bang and all that. But yeah, very interesting. What an awesome stat. Yo.
Yeah. Let's shift gears. We'll probably talk about some of these clubs when we do our Champions Cup preview. So, South African fans, this is a third edition of the South African teams in the European Champions Cup. We know the drill by now. This is the premier club competition in the world. How it works is that we have 4 pools of 6, and the top 4 teams all qualify for the last 16, and then we do knockouts from there. So in the Champions Cup, we have the Stormers, the Sharks, and the Bulls, and then the Lions and the Cheetahs are representing us in the Challenge Cup. So what we're gonna do is very quickly go through the polls and then just, I mean, yeah, if we try to predict the teams that are going to be in, we're going to take too long. So maybe talk about the teams that will be out and then quickly preview some of the games that are happening this weekend. So we start with Pool 1. It has the defending champions Toulouse, and they're joined in that pool by, so Toulouse are top of the log in France. Second on the log is also in this pool, which is Bordeaux. You have the Sharks who are doing quite well. You have Ulster, Cooks' favorite team in this pool. And then you have Exeter and Leicester Tigers from the England perspective. So Exeter are bottom of the log. They haven't won a game yet in the Premiership. They're really struggling right now. They're going to Durban this weekend. Leicester Tigers are doing quite well. They're third in the Premiership. Michael Checkers, started to cook there. Um, in terms of this weekend's games, Shaun, what's the game that you're looking forward to between Sharks versus Exeter? That's happening on Saturday afternoon. Toulouse versus Ulster on the Sunday, or Bordeaux versus Leicester. Which one is the game you're looking forward to the most out of those three?
I think Bordeaux Leicester. Um,
Mm.
I'm quite obviously looking forward to the Sharks game, but I think Bordeaux Leicester is going to be the big one. The Champions Cup's been approached a little bit differently by clubs than what it has in the past. Like a lot of sides have been kind of resting players. Normally, the week before the Champions Cup, like everyone really, puts their first team out to give them a run, kind of get rid of a bit of that rust and the cobwebs. But now with the way the format is, they don't really have to do it. So it's quite an interesting one. But Bordeaux Leicester is definitely the one that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah. Cooks, then in terms of the Sharks game, they're hosting Exeter. Like I said, Exeter's bottom of the log. I mean, it doesn't make sense that Exeter should be bottom of the log. They have so many talented players. I mean, they were really good last season. They have the Faye Wabosos, they have Scott Searle captaining them, they have Ethan Roots. For the Sharks, is this a game they should be worried about, or do you think they'll be able to take the 4 or 5 points home?
I think it's a game where they should take the 4 or 5 points home. Exeter obviously is in the trenches at the moment, and it's for the Sharks because I mean again the Sharks are a side that's built to sort of go deep in a competition like this with all the Springboks. I mean if that's a plan, they want to put themselves back in. If they want to be one of the elite clubs in Europe, this is a game they win. They get, to be honest with you, they should actually they get the 5 points and put a performance in,
Yeah.
but a win has to be a non-negotiable.
Yeah, look, especially with the likes of Bordeaux and Toulouse, and if you want a high seeding for the knockouts, the Sharks have to try and get 5 points from these games in Durban. Okay, guys, let's predict it. Which two teams are going to fall out of Pool One? So just again, it's Sharks and Ulster from the URC. It's Exeter and Leicester from the Premiership, and it's Toulouse and Bordeaux in the Champions Cup. I think we could both say Toulouse and Bordeaux are going to be in. So which teams will fall out for you, Shaun? The two teams.
Exeter, and it's between Ulster and Bordeaux for me. I
Oh,
know that's a bit
Bordeaux.
wild. It's a bit wild.
Whoa,
It's a bit
you're a
wild,
wild man,
but
Southie.
I
Exeter,
don't.
and
Yeah.
just for Cooks, I'm going to say Ulster.
All I know
I
is
don't want to
Ulster's
say
out there.
Sharks, but
That's what I know.
Ulster.
They are out of there. Enjoy enjoy your little trip to Europe. You're out of there. Enjoy this little renaissance in December and Jan, but you Ulster's out of there. Also, I think
Ulster,
Ulster.
Ulster love frauding a last sort of get the last spot to qualify for the knockout and then do absolutely nothing in the knockout. So I wouldn't count
Yeah,
them out too quickly. But yeah, I think Exeter and Ulster are the ones that are most in danger. Oh, that Sharks versus Toulouse game in January in Durban. I am salivating over that. I can't
That
wait.
that's
And
that's the difference between the Sharks being knocked out and not. And because it's in Durban, it is massive. It literally changes the game.
yeah, because they're facing Bordeaux away as well. So the Sharks have to make hay when they face these English teams and try to get 8, 9, 10 points. And then when they face Toulouse and Bordeaux, they have to win at least one of them if they want to qualify and fully assure themselves. So yeah, Sharks can't lose their two games against the English sides. They need to get two wins probably, and that's going to be tough. I mean, Leicester at home is going to be a challenge for them. But yeah, I would also say Ulster and Exeter. That's probably going to be the end of their Champions Cup. And yes, Toulouse will send their first team to Durban. They take this
Oh,
competition
please.
very seriously.
You see, it all hinges on this opening 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's like if they win their opening 2 weeks and they get 10 points, they don't have to. Like that is, as much as there's a lot of hate around this tournament setup, when you have a strong pool, it will make it interesting and it will change things up. But yeah, I don't see them slipping up, And if they send the first team to Durban, guys, we need to go. We need to go.
I'm
Oh,
definitely not missing that. I cannot miss
we will
that.
be there. We will be there.
I have to be.
We have to see the goat, and I'm talking about Sia Kolisi, of
See ya.
course.
See ya,
Thala,
Pool
Kolisi.
two.
you gotta watch out, bro. Like, you're catching strays also on these Twitter streets about your DuPont takes. I see people are always on your case as
Wow.
well. So Thala, you gotta watch out when you go to Durban. People might want to see you face to face. They'll be like, you better hope DuPont. You better hope the Sharks win and DuPont is a good game. Otherwise, people are gonna be on you. They're gonna be on your case.
Hey man, whatever. Let's go to pool two. For the URC, representing the URC is Leinster and Kooks' other favorite team, Benetton. For the champions, and I mean, yeah, Leinster obviously unbeaten in the URC, doing well. Benetton, we've talked about them. For the Premiership, it's Bath, Sean's favorite team. They're top of the log. They had their first loss this. Oh no, I mean they only had one loss, I should say. And Bristol. So this is the men's team, not the women's team. That's obviously signed a big player this week. But Bristol's second in the log, in the Premiership, so they're doing quite well. And then the French clubs, it's Clermont and La Rochelle. La Rochelle, obviously former champions. They're sixth in the top 14. They just lost to Vaughan, and Ronagar's not happy about that. And then Clermont are actually doing quite well in the top 14 right now. They're third. They are sort of the one team that's kind of keeping pace with Toulouse and Bordeaux. So they're having a really strong season so far. So this is quite a tight group, Cooks, because all six of these teams are doing quite well, except for Benetton, pretty much.
Yeah, Benetton's out of there. They're gone, 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 gone. I'll be surprised if they even win a game. To be honest with you, that's how done I am with Benetton. But you're right. I mean, obviously, for the last two teams, it's going to be very, very, very. That plays for fourth and fifth is going to be an absolute fight. But I do think, I think Benetton won't get through. I'm gonna, I'm gonna put La Rochelle in there. I'm gonna be
Yes.
convinced. I'm gonna put La Rochelle in there. I mean, I think it's sometimes like I think it's a knock. I think Clermont will find a way. I think the Bears could find a way. And I'm definitely not picking against Finn Russell. So maybe La Rochelle. Oh, it's between them and the Bears, and I think I might lean against La Rochelle, and it hurts me to say that because my guy Dylan Lates is there.
Listen, Cooks, you are on it. Excuse me. So I think Benetton drop out, and I think that other spot is between the two French sides. And that is because the top 14 means so much to them. Clermont are not where they used to be, and they in for a tough run. So they may, and not like officially, but they may throw their Champions Cup games because that's not a priority for them. And I think La Rochelle, they want to win a top 14. That they've won the Champions Cup a couple of times, but they haven't won the top 14. And that is first, I think that is the only prize that they want this year. I don't think that both those French sides can cope with going deep in the Champions Cup. And the reason being is because I don't think they have the squads to cope on both ends when they're going to focus on the top 14. So I was almost going to say both French sides will drop out, but because they're going to pull an Ulster where one of them are going to make it through and get absolutely obliterated in the opening rounds of the knockouts. So yeah, I maybe Benetton caused a bit of chaos, but I was going to go with Clermont, Benetton and Clermont, but you've nailed the Cooks with La Rochelle.
Yeah. Before I give my prediction, just in terms of Cooks, the question I asked Sean, just in terms of the games this weekend. So in this pool, you've got Bath versus La Rochelle on Friday night. In at the Rec, you've got Clermont hosting Benetton, and then on Sunday it's Bristol hosting Leinster. What's the game you're looking forward to the most out of those three?
I've got to go to I've got to go the Bristol Leinster game. I think Bristol,
Ooh.
for me, can make a big statement, and I think they can by taking down a Leinster side. I think this Bristol side is sort of almost opening on the radar. But I think Bristol, I think they beat Leinster this weekend.
Hmm.
Just throw the
Interesting.
cat,
I mean, they were
throw the
throwing
cat
the
amongst.
ball around on Saturday. On Friday against Harlequins.
Nah, I'm believing in the Bears. And I think they'll throw the cat amongst the pigeons by getting a win this week. A little upset win for them.
Jeez.
I
For you,
think I
Sean?
think that side of the hood. I think I'm after the Bath game this weekend. I think both Bristol and Bath could win this weekend. That Cooks, that would be amazing. I'm just also worried about Bath going deep in this and what it'll mean to them regarding the Premiership. I think they'll have the same feelings about the Premiership that Clermont and La Rochelle have about
Champions
the
Cup.
top
I mean, the
14.
top 14.
Yeah. So, but you see, La Rochelle opening game away from home, like that's huge. And Bath, they want the Rec to be their fortress. So it could really upset the apple cart with La Rochelle possibly losing this weekend. But my one is the opening game on Friday, Bath, La Rochelle. That's my pick. But I will most certainly be glued to the TV when Leinster travel to Bristol on Sunday.
Yeah. Look, I think I sort of differ with you a little bit, Sean. I think both French sides take it a bit more seriously because they don't have to travel to South Africa. I think that's their big saving grace. They don't need to factor in a trip to Durban or Pretoria for this. So, I mean, La Rochelle, obviously, they have a big heritage in this competition. They'll at least want to be in the sort of last eight, last four conversation. And Clermont, obviously, it's been a while, but they want to be, I think it's their, this is the first. I mean, they've maybe been in and out, but I think this is the first time they have a team that could do something, with Jeannot and like the young players that they have, they could sort of make a run. So I'll go. I don't want to pick against Benetton. I'm still holding on my Benetton stocks. I still think they could do something. And I said they'll be in the semi-final for the URC, and I'm looking so stupid right now. But I'll say Bristol falls off, and I'll say Clermont falls off. I think Benetton sneak in at fourth and just make Cooks a bit angry. Yeah,
Bristol have the ability to take
tear up
80.
teams. Goodness.
No, but they have the ability to take 80 points if they're having an off day. That is the one thing. That's the one thing about them that I'm like a little bit worried about.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I heard there was some noise, Cooks, about Bernard Janssen van Rensburg maybe being a Springbok. Look, I think that he's going to have like a
Please.
2010 LeBron decision type of situation now because I think he qualifies for England after the season.
Yep.
And he must go play for them, brother. Play for England.
We spoke about it a couple of weeks. If Bernard and Ollie Lawrence join together in the England midfield, they'll be shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Bernard is good. Don't get me wrong, but I think he must go play for England. Like I think we've got quite a few centers here, and he has been playing really well. But yeah, let him go play for England. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Not everybody who's South African playing well has played for the Box overseas.
Fast forward 5 years when Bernard single-handedly beats the Springboks. Fast forward. Then if we are not running this podcast, we will bring it back from the death and get Cooks back.
To this day, there's not a single Springbok player who's played for another country that I've gone, man, I really wish he was a Springbok. I genuinely don't. Like even the whole Duan thing. And Duan is the base case scenario of it. I mean, Clyde Rathbone did score against us, the fucker. But,
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm just saying, that's fine. But I'm saying, like, Duan from America is the worst case scenario that's happened. And Duan is phenomenal. He's one of the top 5 in the world. Like, that's the worst case. But again, like, we have the Carbies, we have. I just think there's too much depth coming through. And you say in 5 years' time, you look at guys coming through at school, the Peter van Merwes and guys like that. You go, for me, I just don't feel like there's a guy overseas who if they end up playing for England, who I'll regret not picking Springbok. Because if that was the case, he would have been a Springbok already. We can bring them back. So it's not like we don't have the luxury of bringing them back. We can bring them in the fold. So that's why I'm like, if he does play for England, like maybe I'm one of the few. Like I don't ever think I still haven't gone like, man, I really wish we had him. I really wish he didn't go. I really wish Piers Kuman didn't go. VPNL, who I'm a big fan of. Even for someone like when VPNL was the major stage, we were still thinking about maybe cover tight head. So we the Cheetahs. So my thing is, I think he must go play for England.
Cook's giving a nice little word there to Bernard that you must look at these options elsewhere. Let's go to pool 3. Another South African team is in this pool. The Bulls are in there with Munster for the South African teams. I mean, to be fair, Munster has quite a few South Africans right now. They might be considered our fifth team. You have Northampton and Saracens in for the English teams. Northampton not quite doing well with their defense of the Premiership. They've lost more than they've won so far. They're eighth at the moment. Saracens have been doing quite decently well actually. I mean, they lost to Newcastle, but they were doing pretty well before that. And then for the French sides, you have Stade, who've had a pretty bad season after they had a nice surprise run last year, and Castres, who are contractually obliged to play Munster every year. Castres are seventh in the top 14, doing Castres things, and Stade are 12th and are looking behind their shoulders for relegation. So, Shaun, Kooks, let's not beat around the bush. Stade is going to fall out, probably Castres, but Stade is definitely going to fall out. What do you think,
I
Shaun?
feel bad for Start because
I
they were very good last year. Yeah, but this pool there's a lot going on in this pool. I mean, like number one, the Bulls are the best side in this pool, and they should top it. Um, that's the only good thing I'll say about the Bulls for a very long time.
I'll
Um,
take it.
but yeah, I mean, because all the other sides have sort of been, I don't know, it's a mess here. But yeah, it's like who should? It's like almost like the Bulls and who like maybe Saracens are probably the second best side, but then the rest is like, man, like can some teams like in the other pool, like you look at like the Benetton, the pool like pool two, like can some of those pool teams in pool two come to pool three? Like just because like now we're gonna the teams that are struggling are just gonna like sneak their way into get their way into the playoff, but I think I'm gonna be controversial. I think
Ooh.
I think Munster and Cast fall out.
Monster, wow.
I thought I was going to piss Tyler off, but you've gone and pissed everyone else off. I think
Yeah,
I do think it's between Stud and Cust the way one of them, but I'm going to go with Cust, and I think the Bulls fall out.
I just think
The
Stud's gonna find
Bulls
some
fall
money.
out. What?
Jeepers.
I
How,
think the Bulls
Shocky?
slip up somewhere.
Like 5 times.
Yeah, I just looked at that and I was like, oh, looks interesting. You see, I'll be very honest. I wish I'm going to make a massive A1 thing in this office here, and I'm going to put the home and away game so I can just double check it a little bit. But I think the Bulls slip out of this
If the Bulls slip out of this, then Jake White should be going to a buffet until basically, and then the same stuff.
until he
Like,
can beat Moodie at a sprint, 100 meters.
you look at the next pool, and you look at. I mean, they out of all those pools here. They're all very tough. Pool three is where you actually want to be if you're a Bull. They are the most form side out of them. But
Mm.
oh, shocky. I like that.
Yeah, Cooks, and the thing is, and we've seen it before with this competition, is you need to qualify in the top of your pool if you want a nice, easier road for your knockouts. And that will assure you a home last 16, a home quarterfinal. I'm not sure if that, excuse me, that rule is still there that South African teams can't host the semi-final, but
Probably is.
you
Probably is.
want, who knows? But yeah,
Rant incoming.
you want those things if you want to win this competition. No South African side is going to win if they have to go away and try to win in Paris or in France or in England or in Ireland, whatever the case is. You need to host your games, and the Bulls are in the best position to try and top a log because the Sharks are not going to do it because of the likes of Toulouse and Bordeaux. The Storms are probably not going to do it because of their form, but they also have some tough teams to navigate in Pool 4. The Bulls are in such a great position now that they need, and I think that's it. Kind of worked out with the Connacht game as well. They took their first choice team, and we're going to see the big guns. We're not going to see what they did last year in the quarterfinal where they prioritized the URC. So a big win against Saracens. They then face Northampton at home next week. If they can get 10 points there, Stud and Kastrop, I think it's Stud that's coming to Pretoria. Stud's going to send their under eights there. Like, we know that's going to be at least 5 points.
Is Bulls
Can we
playing
talk about this
Northampton?
big win against Saracens first?
That's
Like,
gonna
Look,
be. I think.
you
I
reckon they're going to
think
BP out of this?
maybe not a BP, but I think it's a good chance that the Bulls can get 4 and Saracens get 0 because Saracens are still also trying to find themselves from what I've
Yeah,
seen.
to be fair, they're not in
Is
great form, but I think that's a stretch.
is the Bulls playing Northampton Saints Pretoria or up in Northampton?
Pretoria.
Oh, geez, finally. The Bulls are playing a game in South Africa. What a miracle. Oh my
It'll be
goodness.
next week. The first time Jan Krobler has seen South African soil in about what 2 months
I
or
think I might
whatever.
I think I might just go to the game to see the Bulls if they actually like human beings or just the guys I just see playing rugby and like if they still actually like there's like this is who they are like it's not like a mirage I'm seeing in front of me.
Yeah, and Castra's going to be the away game for the Bulls for the French sides. Castra's just so unpredictable. They will beat Munster. That's what they're contractually obliged to do, and they'll probably put themselves in competition because Sean, unlike other French sides, they just don't really know how to put themselves down a gear. They're just always an irritating team to face for Toulouse or for Munster or for whoever.
Rassie Erasmus, he will never admit it, but he has taken his whole game plan out of how Castre operates. Basically, you are nothing. Everyone hates you. Everyone thinks you shit. Go and prove them wrong. Rassie has pulled that out of the top 14, and our cast have won their top 14s in the past from like eighth. So that's we all know the kind of dog they're going to bring, and they always bring it. And they it's prime. There could not have been a better team on this planet for Rory Cockett than a side that just needs to play dirty niggle. And I mean, it's Rory Cockett's both his teams, his top 14 sides are here. Stud and Cast are there, but Cast are like they just dog, man. They will break your finger in the bottom of the ruck and they will squeeze your nuts. Like that's the kind of side they will just want to fight and be in with a shot, and then they're going to win.
Sean, you might know more than I do. What is happening with Northampton? Because they still have half, if not three quarters, of the English backline. So they still have the Finn Smiths, Alex Mitchells, George Furbanks. Their forwards are still relatively good. I mean, yes, they've lost Laws and the player that plays for Toulon now as well. But what has
Ribbons.
happened to them? Because there we go. Because they're not consistent since they, in defending their premiership right now.
I think they got like a identity problem. Like maybe they stuck in the England vibe too much. I think this will pull them straight. Yeah, I'm very wary of them. They have the thing is they've got the players. They most certainly have the back line, and they've definitely got the quality up front to hold their own. They've got the ability to kind of hurt you. So I'm always very wary of them.
Yeah. For Zerican viewers, watch out for Emmanuel Eogan. The Lucid prop, like he's massive. Like he's really tall. He's really good scrummager, but he also works around the field. I think that's a player. And Henry Pollock. If you follow Charlie Morgan, he has a massive he's a big fan of him. He's a dynamic flanker. He does everything. He was playing quite well for England A as well. So those are players to look forward to. Like I said, stud. I'll go with. Unfortunately, I'll go with Northampton. They maybe will fall off and then maybe make a big return in the Premiership. Then the final pool where we find the Stormers. The Stormers
This is
are joined by
dangerous.
this is a bit of a pull of death. So Glasgow's there. Obviously, Glasgow, the defending URC champions, that doing pretty well so far. The French sides, you have Racing and Toulon. You know, two sort of the two Real Madrid sides. Racing are pretty average so far this year. I think there's a lot of pressure on Stuart Lancaster. He might be going to Munster. Toulon are doing really well, and it seems like they've brought their first choice team to Port Elizabeth to play their game against the Stormers this weekend. And then the English sides are Sale and Harlequins. We know what we're going to get from Harlequins. We know they're going to be quite unpredictable. And then with the Sharks, the Sale Sharks, I should say, also about sixth place in the log right now. Yeah, we also know what we're going to get from them. With the players that they have. So, in terms of the game to look forward to this weekend, Cooks, the for this pool, we have the Stormers playing Toulon in Kadeja. We have Glasgow hosting Sale on Saturday evening. And then we have Racing hosting Harlequins for like the 20th time, it feels like these last few seasons. What's the game you're looking forward to there?
Guys, I'm going any game when the Quins are playing is the one to look out to because I am on board the Marcus Smith bandwagon. I think Marcus Smith is going to,
Yes.
by the time we speak again, by the time next year, I think he's got a chance to be the best 10 in the world. I think he's going to take the crown. I am jumping firmly on this Marcus Smith bandwagon. So I think the Quins are, I think they play Sale this weekend. I think they're going to have a big win. And I'm jumping on board. I'm fully on board. The Quins will throw the ball around, but I'm believing in Marcus Smith. And I think they're going to top the pool ahead of Glasgow as well. That's what I feel like the Harlequins are
Hmm.
going to do. I'm feeling fantastic about the Harlequins, and Stormers are not going to be knocked out. They're gonna get through. That's my belief. I feel great about the Stormers as well. I think they need a massive win, and they're playing in PE, and I think they'll bounce back. Moyne Labok is fantastic in PE, but yeah, Stormers will not get knocked out. I think the Stormers are going to do what Chelsea, my football team, did, where you just sometimes just forget about your domestic competition and just throw all your eggs in the European stuff. Stormers might just be saving themselves just for the European stuff.
They might have to, like the Sharks.
Hey,
I
Sharks are
look
not
at
going
this.
there.
I look at
Not
this
going
group.
there.
It's Glasgow, Racing, Sale, Stormers, Toulon, and Harlequins. I look at that group and I'm like, I can see every single one of those sides winning, but I can also see every single one of the sides losing by 40. Like, that's the freaking scary part. I don't know. Tyler, what's the question? Let me force an answer out of this.
No, I was going to ask you which two teams fall out, and it's a very difficult question to answer.
Okay. I think. What have I missed here?
I'm just laughing at
Cooks.
you. I just can't believe the way this group has just got you like confused.
So I can't get my eyes off the Stormers dropping out, but I'm going to say that both Toulon and Racing will. Just see, this is kake. Stormers and Racing to fall out. Oh, it could be any one of those six. Just freaking call a number, ask Siri to help you out with number 1 to 6, and they'll give you a loser.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. I think if
Okay,
Racing
Siri,
was
roll the
doing the trip
dice.
to if Racing was doing the trip to South Africa, I'd say they fall out definitely, but they're facing the Stormers at home, so they don't need to, put Gelfiku and the boys, flying them down to Cape Town. Toulon obviously are taking this seriously. They're flying their first, their first choice team here, so we'll see how that goes on Saturday. Yeah, I can't run away from it. I think it will be Stormers and Racing that fall out. I don't know if the Gqeberha game sort of falls, it just sort of goes against the Stormers, maybe gets them out of their routine. We know what happens when teams play outside of their like normal home, but yeah, obviously hoping for big support there. Then the Stormers have, I mean, the Stormers have a good road for this because they face Harlequins and Racing at their places. I mean, Racing, you've going on like like basically the best running pitch ever, and that's going to be great news for the Stormers and their offloads. Harlequins, you'll have each and every South African there at the Stoop. It'll be feeling like a home game. So you're facing Sale and Toulon, or probably the two better away teams. Two better teams you don't want to face at their home, and you're facing them at home. So it should be the Stormers going through, but the form is just looking a bit dodgy, and you just see all that Champions Cup heritage from the other teams. A sneaky team that might fall out is Glasgow. Glasgow, I mean, Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Glasgow don't really do well in Europe. Like they just, yeah, the Scottish teams just have a bit of a mental block there. So it could be that it's Glasgow that falls out actually after all of this commotion that we're doing here.
The thing is like if you're looking at how guys form in Europe when it was the previous sort of format, it's really hard. I think Glasgow have the bodies to do it. You guys are just gonna have to trust me on this. Okay, I'm rolling. I've got 2 die over here, so I will give you who are falling out. It's just the way it is. I can't explain it, but here we go. Okay, right. Oh, that's stupid. 2 and 2. Okay, right. Number 2, Racing and Sale. So that's who I've got, 2 and 3, according to this pool that I've got set up here. So Rusting and Sale are
Okay.
dropping out. That's my final
Very
answer.
scientific.
It's not a bad one, to be fair.
Very scientific. Very quickly on the Challenge Cup, we have South African features there as well. The one pool without South Africans, it's just very quickly, it's Vaughan, Bayonne, the Georgia Black Lion team, Scarlets, Edinburgh, and Gloucester. Gloucester doing actually quite well in England right now. They, I think are playing a lot better than I would have expected at the start of the season. Bayonne's doing pretty decently. Van just, is obviously trying to fight their way and trying to stay in the top 14. Blackline will be interesting. Edinburgh's doing better. I mean, Sean Everett is cooking something there. Scarlets are Scarlets. So we'll see what happens there. Then for the South African sides, the Lions on pool 2, they're joined by the Dragons and Ospreys, so 2 Welsh sides. And then the French sides is Montpellier and Pau. So Montpellier kind of better than they were last season. They're not as desperate as they were. Pau is sort of at the same place that Montpellier is. You wonder if either of those teams are going to prioritize Europe at the moment. And then Newcastle obviously having a bit of a renaissance. Cooks, this seems like a nice group for the Lions because you can make arguments as to why the other teams are all focusing on their domestic competitions, and maybe the Lions should be doing the same as well. But the Lions could probably get through this and still rotate their teams.
Yeah, I think they could be able to rotate their side. I think obviously the problem with the Lions, obviously the one that URC sort of seedings. Oh, I mean, they can do the Sharks way, just win the whole thing and then just guarantee yourself a place in the Champions Cup. But yeah, I think that it's the Lions group to win. I think, but it's just such a pity that I'm sure they'd love to be the Champions Cup, but I just think for the Lions, if it's ever a chance for them to sort of bring a two great opportunities to bring a trophy back to Joburg. I think the Challenge Cup is a big one for them as well. I think I can see them also throwing a lot of stock in this competition as well, Tana.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, they're facing the 2 Welsh sides in their 4 games. So they're facing both Ospreys and Dragons. So there's obviously nothing going to be
What?
unfamiliar about that. Don't ask me why. Their away game for the French teams is Montpellier. So I think, and it's like late in the competition. So probably by that stage, maybe Montpellier loses interest. Yeah, it could fall in the right side for them. So, if the Lions could get their win against Ospreys this weekend, that could hopefully put them in good stead for the rest of the competition. Obviously, Ospreys will be also looking at that game as a game to win.
Yeah, it's the thing is there's such a massive carrot being dangled that you can play the Champions Cup next year if you go on and win this. I really do think the Lions can go on and win it. It's top 4 make it through anyway again. So like it's it's great for any side to get to the knockouts and then you can assess your domestic competition and make a decision. So yeah, it's. I really do think the Lions can go all the way, but they're going to have to do what the Sharks did and just basically put all their eggs in one basket and make that call and just hope like hell it works. To be fair, the Dragons and Ospreys are going to have to do the same.
Yeah. Is it the 5th place team in the Champions Cup that makes it into the last 16 as well, right?
I have no idea.
I think so. Okay, we'll find that out too. Then the Cheetahs, they're in the same pool as Cardiff and Connacht. Cardiff obviously in the top 4 right now. Connacht sort of bumbling and struggling along. Zebra is also in this pool, so a lot of you are seeing this pool. And then Perpignan and Lyon are here as well. Lyon are bottom of second from bottom in the top 14. Perpignan are 11th. So again, 2 teams that are not really focused on maybe doing well in the Champions Cup. I mean, the Challenge Cup.
Can I ask
Uh,
something? Can
yes,
we
Sean.
please have Leon winning the Challenge Cup and playing in the Champions Cup next year, but then getting relegated in the top 14? Can we just have that, please?
Wow.
So they can play
Yeah,
Pro D2 and Champions Cup in the same season. Beautiful.
that
Bring it
has
on.
happened to a team before, I think. It
Didn't
seems familiar.
Saracens play Champions Cup when they were relegated, but not for playing badly?
Oh yeah. Oh goodness. So yeah, but I mean, Sean, this group, I mean, doable for the Cheetahs. I mean, I think it's harder than last year's group for them.
Yeah, I look at this group and I'm just like, what a shit show with all the URC sides. And it's a bit of a banana peel because you kind of think you've beaten someone already and you know what they're going to bring, but it's a different. This is a this the European tournaments are different. They're different babies for the European sides. Like we're newbies and we keep getting into the groove, but it is tough. I think Connacht are going to be hard. I think Leon are going to be hard. Those are the two sides that I think are probably the biggest ones to worry for the Cheetahs.
Okay. So let's quickly finalize by doing a bit of a quick roundup of news. First big news item, Kooks. Ilona Maher, she is landing into the Premier Women's Rugby tournament. She's going to be playing for Bristol for the rest of the season. She's going to be making a push to get into the USA squad for the 2025 Rugby World Cup. Great news that everyone had only positive things to say about, right, Kooks?
Yes, we love a moan, eh? Jeepers, like you know, just like it's always something. Like the sad part is now we're getting a brand from fans all over the world. Is like we just love complaining about everything if something's not South African. But I think it's fantastic. You know, I mean, obviously she wants to push towards the Rugby World Cup. I think it's great for the Rugby World Cup. I think obviously Thala, we know like in basketball the Clayton Clark situation. I just think USA needs to pick her regardless. Just let her have a like do you like what like Jacob like was it, I need to have like the same debut as Jacob Sahili had. Just have one good debut. I'm like, you know what, you in the Lions team, you in the World Cup team. Like that's what we need. Like that's the kind of moment that Maher needs. I think it's great for rugby, and the fact that like she's gonna bring definitely a whole new audience to a new competition, it's great. Like I think it's fantastic. I think rugby needs the eyes, and especially in the States where the World Cup is going in 2031. I don't know what they used to complain about. I mean, we saw what single handedly she did with rugby in the Olympics in terms of exposure when people were watching her.
Yeah.
And it benefited the game, especially such a niche market is sevens and women's sevens as well. So I can't understand why like the most grip like who's the biggest best. I'm like, I just love her. Sometimes we do love a moan. Like I just don't think World Rugby is out to get us every day. I think it's I think it's 4 times a week, but 3 times they actually do their normal job. So I think the World Rugby is not out to get us.
Yeah, I just find it so weird. Like, why would they try to get us with a USA women's player? Like, what's the plan here? Like, yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, Shaun, I think yes, she was an absolute hit in the Olympics. She's a great hit in the sevens usually. Probably Ilona Maher's biggest achievement was that she was second for Dancing with the Stars just now.
Yeah, I think like I think she's a decent player. She's not like Anton Dupont, like in the women's game. So, but the thing is what she also does is she's pretty big and strong. So she puts in some big hits and really slaps some
Yeah.
people down every now and then with a good fend. So she's like great value. I love her. I love the vibe. I love what she brings. I think it is amazing for the game. I think it is amazing. I really do. It'll bring more eyes to the game. It'll bring more focus on the women's game. And as you said, just before England are hosting the World Cup, I think it's brilliant. I think it's incredible. So can we have more of that, please?
Cooks, which position do you think she goes to? Because she hasn't really played a lot of senior 15s rugby in her career.
It's going to be interesting because in sevens she obviously like she plays proper and she does a lot of work down the trams. Also, you said maybe she could play wing. I think wing could be a great position for.
I've got a position.
I think she should be an absolute cheat code on the wing, like sort of just coming off 10 running inside channels. Because I mean, she's very very powerful, and the interesting for me is going to be how she adapts because I mean, like I said, she can't play rugby. I mean, she's quick, she's dominant, she makes big hits, and she's having played seven, she's got the skill set. So I do think wing, I do think out wide could be the premise for. I mean, Shocky, what you gonna say? Eighth man.
I was going to say flank. I was actually going to put a blindside
Ooh.
flank. I think
You say
blindside
eighth man
flank.
or eighth player in. I don't know what is it in women's rugby. I don't offend anyone.
Yeah,
Eighth player.
Just say flank. Say loose trio at the back. I think blindside flank. I think blindside flank. But I will be very honest, and we know we haven't seen too much of her in the 15s. But I don't know who she's up against at Bristol for that spot. But blindside would be a good shot. I'm actually going to find out what position she played for the Eagles 15s, so you guys can chat.
I don't think
I can
she's played
definitely
for
see
the
it.
15s.
Yeah.
Hasn't she?
I can
No.
definitely see it maybe starting out wide, Thala, and maybe moving to like 12 as she.
Ooh.
Am I completely off the mark when I think she should play flank?
No, I don't think
I
so.
I can
Hmm.
look. I can see it, Sean. It's just obviously with flank, you need to learn more in terms of like scrums and lineouts. I feel like it's exactly like the Sam Burgess situation for England a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like rather put someone in the back line. I mean, yes, there's things you have to learn the back line. No offense to the back line listeners here, but you have to learn a lot less for the back line than you do in the forwards, in my opinion. Which is why I think wing or even maybe outside center, because you look with sevens, you know how to sort of read like a 3-on-1, 2-on-1 type of situation.
Yeah, so she's got 2 caps for the Eagles 15s.
Oh, she
But
does. Okay.
I don't know who it was against. She played Canada in 2021 was her debut. Let me find that.
Oh, okay. At least she has played. Okay, while you're looking at that, Sean, in terms of the actual, I mean, the sevens, the Dubai Sevens started this weekend. In the men, you have Fiji won and they beat Spain, who beat New Zealand twice. Crazy result there, Cooks.
Yeah, that was wild, wild, wild. I thought one time was once, and then to knock them out in the semi-final was absolutely incredible. Hopefully, so
What a game, eh?
little Spanish renaissance there for in the sevens game.
Yeah. And then in the
How did France?
women's, I caught the.
Um,
Go on,
no
Cooks.
one watched. No one watched France's seven side more than South Africans this year for Jamie Darcy. The hate watch. They came fifth. He's like, is this your best coach in the world now?
You did beat the
So,
Springboks though to fifth.
sorry, I'm
Yeah,
jumping
100%.
in. So when Ilona made her USA Eagles Women's Eagles debut, she was player 23, so she'll play in the back line.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see her filling in at loose forward for sure if she needs to. But yeah, I think backline probably makes a bit more sense. Speaking of with the women's sevens, I watched Australia versus New Zealand final, and it was probably one of the best sevens games of the year. Like you can see both of them are at their peak. I mean, I don't think
So
I
cool.
don't think they lost too many players post Olympics, so they were both sort of hitting sort of high notes. You know, we know how good Madison Levi and Kaslik are. You know, you still have Hirini for the Black Ferns as well. They just play such a high quality game. It just felt like whoever was on the lead in the lead at the end of the time was going to be the team winning, which obviously makes zero sense when I say it like that. But it just felt like they were just scoring and just trading scores the
Can
whole
we go
time
back
in
to
the
that?
game.
Can we go back to that? That was
I
brilliant.
Sean, I didn't want you
How
to
do you
to expose me like
sum up?
that.
How do you sum up seven? So where is the lead when the referee blows in the whistle is the one who wins? Okay,
And scored the most
I've always,
points.
I've always wondered how sevens works. You know, Tala,
Look,
like where,
that's my deep analysis on sevens. Yeah.
Listen, I was rolling dice to see who was going to get relegated, so this isn't that far off, eh?
I mean, again, back to the subject at hand. Crazy, yeah. So Australia win the Dubai Sevens. I think this is the fifth time in a row they've won it. They must just be wondering where was this form in Paris.
oh shame is there anything worse than like it's like Ireland winning the Six Nations this year? Like where was this? Where was this a couple of months ago when they needed it in Paris, ironically as well? Nothing worse than like winning a tournament after losing the biggest one you were meant to win. That's the worst. Because now it's like, oh, we bounce back. You know, we bounce back. We show resilience. Where was the resilience when you needed it? In Paris. Where was that? There's always do that. All these teams, yeah, you know, just the way we bounce back, you know, just show us the character. Where was the character in the semifinal in the Olympics? No, but like all the coaches say the same thing in these things. Like, you know, the thing about this group is that nothing keeps them down. I know what keeps them down. The semifinal kept them down. Like, oh, I hate when teams do that. Like, I want a team to lose their biggest moment, then suck the very next tournament. Then you're like, okay, cool, now I got to bounce back.
Okay, gents, I think let's end it there. Yeah, I think that's basically all the news there. We've talked about the buffet table. We've talked about, the biggest superstar in rugby right now. We've talked about sevens, we've talked about Champions and Challenge Cup. Shaun rolled some dice to try and find out who's going to be coming out. So yeah, I think that is a good wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Rugby Biz Podcast. Please follow us on our social media channels. Find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Blue Sky, wherever you go for social media. And please follow us on your preferred podcast platform. Please like, share, review, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure that you share it with your rugby friends. We will probably be starting to wrap up for the rest of the year. We'll see what our plans are for the rest of it. I think we'll do maybe 1 or 2 more episodes for the Champions Cup, and then we'll wrap up for the year. But yeah, just see what we're doing in our social media channels. Thanks, Shaun. Thanks, Kooks, for joining us, and we will see you again after this week's rugby. Bye-bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.